welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon and I am a relationship expert, international speaker and best-selling author of the book Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because in my opinion, relationships are not currently portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news, social media, TV, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories and listen to what real people think, do or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. So here today we have Sue and Martin Gover, and we're going to talk about the impact of illness on relationships. Hi both, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, please?
Hiya. You go first. You go first.
We met about
18
years ago now. And we've been married for 17 years. We were really struggling for quite a while with this a diagnosis that I've got.
Mm-hmm. Martin was diagnosed about 2 years ago, which for me, as his wife, was earth-shattering because I knew it's a degenerative illness.
Yeah.
And I knew the probability is I was going to lose my husband.
Yeah.
And for Martin, my previous marriage, there was a lot of violence and things in, and Martin sort of rescued me from that when I met him.
Yeah.
And has helped me sort of come to terms with a lot what happened during my first marriage and, you know, move on from there into a better place. And he's gone out of his way to support me. He's my rock.
Yeah. So how did you actually meet?
We actually met at a church. We were going to church, and the church we went to at the time used to get different people to do the Bible reading every week because it was a Pentecostal church. Mm-hmm. So instead of just standing there and reading the Bible, you got the Bible reading, but you could do anything you wanted with it. And we got asked. Martin got asked to do the one about the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes.
Right. Okay.
And he said, "I can't do that," didn't you?
Yeah.
And so he said, someone looked up to him and said, "I'll go and ask Sue because, you know, she's really clever. She's got a bit of a creative bend on there." And he asked me, so I went to meet him so we could talk out how we were going to do it. And we finished up talking about our lives. And we worked out that, we went to the same doctors as children. He did work with my dad for a short while.
Blimey.
And our paths have crisscrossed and crisscrossed and crisscrossed the whole of our lives.
It's timing, isn't it? It's timing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing that we had in common, we both had children with special needs. Mm-hmm. My youngest one's got quite a lot of learning disabilities and ADHD and things, and some of your children have got some issues. And obviously we had a lot in common. Relate to each other's story, if you know what I'm trying to
say. Yeah.
And it started off as friendship, didn't it? Because Martin didn't want a wife.
Fair enough.
And I didn't. I was quite happy being single. I'd been since the breakdown of my marriage. I'd been single for about 13 years. So I definitely wasn't looking for anybody. But it was the right time.
Yeah.
And you know, we're still in the mindset that I'm not going to walk out the door and leave him to deal with this on his own.
So Martin, tell us, when you got diagnosed with Parkinson's, how did you feel at the time?
I felt a bit sort of shocked, and I didn't really realise what happens when you've got Parkinson's, you know, and I didn't really realise until I looked it up and, you know, read a bit about it. Mm-hmm. But I think that I get days when I feel a bit down or whatever, and, you know, sort of, but at the same time, I'm trying to keep my mind on what we can do, you know, in the future, and making some really good memories and, you know, things like that, because I think that's the only way around it for me. I try not to think about it too much, you know. I need to just concentrate on being able to, whatever's left of my life, have a good life, and enjoy it,
Yeah. And on a day-to-day basis, what would you say is the impact on the actual relationship?
There is an impact because we haven't sort of mentioned it, but Martin's got some cognitive impairment.
Yeah.
It's memory problems. It's short-term, long-term, short-term memory problems. He gets confused very easily. Martin doesn't go anywhere alone now. If he wants to go out, it's either one of the family will go with him, or he'll go with a carer.
Right.
Because he has had episodes when we've been in places that he's looked at me and said, "Where are we?" And that is really, really scary because, it's just really scary because if he doesn't realise where we are with stuff.
Yeah.
That's quite hard. That's quite difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is I bought some memory, like diary sheets, big diary sheets. So every week I fill in what we're doing.
Right.
So that he's in at the moment still independent enough to be able to read that instead of keep asking me, or what we're doing today.
Yeah.
He can keep checking on his own.
And I suppose that obviously puts a bit of pressure on you because you kind of feel responsible in a way.
In a way, I sometimes feel I've got to make all the decisions. It's like we've just made together the heartrending decision that we're rehoming our dogs.
Yeah.
And it's not something we thought we'd have to do because we took on both dogs, and it was, as far as we were concerned, it was their lifetime home. They would stay with us. But it's not going to be, unfortunately.
Yeah. Is it because it becomes just too much on you, sort of thing?
It's too much, and I can't walk both of them together. One is okay off the lead, but the other one you've got to risk assess because she doesn't like people. So she's going off to a rescue in Wales that specialise in collies that have got issues.
Mm-hmm.
And Pip and Silver's going to be rehomed locally by a local rescue. But it's still heartbreaking. But we both know in our heads are saying, well, we can't do this anymore.
Right.
It's not fair to the dogs because they're not getting the time and attention. They're not getting played with. They're not getting exercise properly.
Okay.
And it's better to say it now than another 6 months down the line. But we've been having this conversation on and off since Christmas last year.
Yeah.
Our problem is the actual physical time that they take that we need to look after them and do stuff with.
Yeah.
And when they get bored at home, they get disruptive and they start being silly.
Yeah.
It's just too much to do. We need to simplify our life. We have been having a major clear out as well, haven't we? Because we're preparing the home for Martin to have a wheelchair in it.
Yeah.
Okay, he doesn't need it now, but it's better that it's going to be put in place sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And so you got the news of the diagnosis and stuff, and obviously you've processed it. How are you feeling now about it all?
I'm in a better place than what I was a couple of months ago. I was so angry with everybody. And it was just like this fizzy bottle of pop that was inside that I just kept pushing more and more down into and was just ignoring what was going on because it's silly, but I've had some, I know this is going to sound really weird, but everybody thought I was suffering from preemptive grief. I know that sounds weird.
Well, not necessarily, because a lot of the time, actually the grieving process has to start somewhere, and the anger is part of it, isn't it? Then is the bargaining, why us, why now, why all of these things, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was pretty angry because my mum only died 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the first 4 years that we've ever had that we haven't had to be somebody else's carer.
Yeah.
And I was really angry about that because I don't want to be Martin's carer, really. I want to be his wife and have a lot of fun.
Yeah. So tell me, what made you look for support?
I think it was me that initiated that because I was really finding it really hard to cope with.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to get things done. Like we tried for about a year to try and get our front garden taken away and have parking and a drop curb because we really need it. And we were going round in circles. And I think I just started Googling support for ex-military.
Yeah.
And veteran outreach support came up. And I can't imagine my life without them now.
Yeah.
Because we know that we can talk to people. I'm not in the boat on my own. I'm in the boat with quite a few other people that go to Voss. I can understand what they are going through, and they can feel what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm. So, for those who don't know, can you explain what VOS or Veterans Outreach Support is, please?
Right, Veteran Outreach Support is an organisation that puts on an awful lot of wellbeing stuff to help with your mental health.
Yeah.
And it also is supportive in other ways. They can signpost you. It's for people that are veterans, people that have got partners that are veterans, or people, if I guess, I can go even on my own when you've gone, can't I? So even if I'm his spouse, even and something happens to Martin, I can still go and have that support. That is really important to me. But when we did sign up, I did say to the lady that signed us up, I said, oh, I should be volunteering. She said, no, not at the moment. It's for your time to give. Volunteering will come round.
Yeah.
We went along one week to a coffee morning at Weecock Farm.
Yeah.
And they directed us down to the big meeting in Portsmouth on the first Wednesday.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it has made such a difference to our lives. Because it is an earth-shattering diagnosis. It's not just something that's going to get better next week.
Right.
We went to see VOS, and things have like turned around really, really quickly, because we went to see them to see if they could support us in some stuff.
Yeah.
Then we found out they put a lot of stuff on for it, for their ex-services and their wives and whatever partners. We started going to different things, and it just made such a difference to our lives.
Yeah.
We had no social life before we met Ross, and then now our social life is so full that we've got to decide, which bits we can fit in.
So, how has that changed? What? How does it make your life better?
The nice thing for me is that if Martin does die before me, it doesn't stop. I can still come to Voss. I can still come to the activities. I will have a friendship base. I will have support. And I think that helps you, because you don't worry about me so much, do you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's also the fact that, they put so much stuff on, and, we try and attend as much of that as we can. And by doing that, it takes your mind off the illness, and you have a lot of because there's different services represented there. So it's all this business of the army's better than the navy and all this sort of stuff. And it's just really good fun, because you make lots of new friends. Yeah, it's just great fun, it really is.
It is part of the banter as well. The banter does make it but sometimes you're sitting there and doing smart or something, you forget all the other rubbish in your life for a bit.
Yeah.
Because that takes someone explained it to me last week, because doing creative things takes over the left side of your brain. So all the right side of your brain that's running at 90 miles an hour thinking, oh my God, well, how are we going to manage this? Or, I really need that. Or what other adaptations do we need for mine? All of that stuff that's running at 90 miles an hour, you sort of forget about it. And you're just so involved in the moment of what we're doing that you forget about the time. You just enjoy chatting to the other guys.
And I think, to be fair, what you just said about living in the moment, sometimes it's actually sad that it takes something like this for us to start living in the moment, as opposed to always looking, to the past or the future, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but we have had some adventures in the last year, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've been to Derbyshire. We went to Wales for a weekend because I bought very, very expensive wrestling tickets with no view. We went and saw, Martin's a big WWE fan. I don't know if you know what that is. Wrestling entertainment.
Yeah.
It's American wrestling.
Yeah. We went and saw what they call a pay-per-view in Cardiff with 62,000 people. What else have we done? Oh my God, we've done so much.
Do you kind of wish you'd done all of these things before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
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 But we're going to wrestling again in April.
I went on, Sue paid for me to go on for my birthday. She paid for me to go on an hour's ride on the back of a Harley Davidson motorbike. which was absolutely awesome. It was like, yeah, brilliant. I love stuff like that. So yeah, it was
But
good.
it has, in a way, taken the diagnosis to sort of kick us both up the bum.
Mhm.
And it's like Martin was 70 back in the September. And I sort of put a 3-line whip out to all the kids because obviously we've got 6 grown-up kids. All our kids are old now. We didn't want any of the children there or the grandchildren. We just said it's just going to be us and the adult children, and we're all going out for a meal.
Mhm. So what was your life like before the diagnosis? Were you more social and more active before then?
We didn't have a social life, really. We didn't know what was on offer for Martin and us. We used to go to church, but the church didn't always put on a lot of social things.
Mhm.
So we used to just stay in or take our dogs out. Or for quite a while, though, during our marriage, so we've been caring for my parents and my gran. We were their carers.
Mhm.
I looked after my dad, I helped look after my gran, and we looked after mum until she passed away. So for big chunks of our marriage, our focus hasn't always been on us. It's always been on
Other people.
well, yeah, because we've always helped out with the great older people. And then for quite a while, we used to have some of the grandkids for school holidays as well. So whichever way you did it, we were the middle generation, but we were like carers for both lots.
I think what it is as well is, a lot of the time when we go through things like that, as you said, you were the carers for most of the family, one way or another. And then all of a sudden you feel like it's just you two, and actually as if you were completely alone in this. So starting to talk to people, and that's one of the things I think people don't always understand is talking. One of the things, obviously you've had to talk about your own emotions to one another, but sometimes it's nice to talk to an outsider.
No, actually, we haven't.
You haven't?
Actually, we haven't. We don't talk about our emotions because I don't want to upset Martin because I would cry. So I tend to just go and chat to friends, or we don't really talk about the Parkinson's. We don't talk about the diagnosis. We try to live in the moment as much as we can. We're blessed because we have got a big static caravan up north as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard, it is crap. We've got to look at the positives. The positives is we've made loads of friends. A positive is that I know even when something happens to Martin, I'm going to have a group of people around me that won't let me sit and wallow. The probability is I would start volunteering for VOS because they've given us so much.
And in terms of VOS, I know they offer counselling and stuff. Is it something that you've looked to have or get or?
And I've just had some bereavement counselling, and I think I've worked quite a bit of it out in my head now.
Yeah.
I think I'm learning to focus a bit more on having fun, aren't I? And yeah, we do try to have fun. I know there's going to be tears on the way.
Yeah.
We've been told we've got our lasting power of attorneys done now.
Yeah.
Which again is something when you're in your 50s, you don't sort of really want to sit there and do because you think you're immortal. Because really, 50 is the new 40, isn't it? Let's be honest.
The new 30 even, I think.
Well, we've been told to make our wills as well.
But to be fair, I think that, so a couple of years ago, just before lockdown, I went to France to see my parents and I found my dad, well, on the Sunday morning, we found my dad dead. There was no,
Awful.
there was no, it wasn't expected, shall we say. And one of the things, despite the fact I am in my 40s, the first thing I did was a will, because I thought, if anything happens to me, how does that work? Sort of thing. So sometimes I think that we should do these things far earlier than we realise.
Yeah.
Well, we've just done all ours, but it's not pleasant to have to think about doing this.
No.
It's not I don't love Martin. If I hated him, I'd just say, "Oh, stay with me," and I'll just become like my mum did and shout at you all the time. Because that's how my mum was towards my dad towards the end of his life. All she did was shout at him. I don't want to be that with Martin. I'd rather make sure that I get breaks and I get time out and enjoy myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got the ability to carry on caring.
Yeah, it gives you a break. So that you're not resentful either.
No, I'm not resentful. I sometimes get frustrated when I've repeated the things about 6 times, but hey.
Yeah.
It's just like the BBC. It's just we have repeats.
Exactly. So obviously you've looked for support. But some people are sometimes a bit scared because it's the unknown, isn't it?
But they are fabulous. They just are. They're just so brilliant. It's just all the things like that. It's having a good laugh and a joke and forgetting everything for a while. But if they were scared, I would highly recommending just cut off your backside and look.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
and that's what it's all about, is having friendship. Have a friendship circle.
but I think, to be honest with you, I think if I'd been on my own, I probably wouldn't have thought about going to somewhere like FOSS or any of the other ex-military groups. You know, I probably wouldn't have done it.
What is that, do you think? Is it because you wouldn't have looked, or you wouldn't have?
Because because I just wouldn't have thought about it. You know, I wouldn't have thought, oh, there's someone out there that can help me. I would just struggle along. You know, and I think, as I say, it was Sue that first said, "Oh, you know, we've got to try and find some help, you know, some support." And I said, well, you know, we do need it, because, you know, I've got to try and look after Sue so that she can look after me, if you like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, we've got to keep her fit and well, you know, and that's physically and mentally, you know, because you know, otherwise she's not going to cope when I get worse. You know, certainly don't regret the day that we got in touch with them. And I, you know, I'm having such a fantastic time. Just going to all the different things they've got on.
Yeah. And going back to, sorry, Martin, what you were saying about you would not have thought, do you think that it's kind of got to do with, like, sometimes men don't like to talk about their problems?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, it's like, I think it's typical of men to try and, you know, to shut it all away, you know, and we let it build up until we explode, in a sense, you know. And I think, you know, I am a bit like that. I mean, you know, I'm not very good at sharing the way I'm feeling, you know. It's, I think that's a thing for most men. I think that they get like that, you know, and especially men, like people that are ex-military.
Yeah, because you were taught to be strong, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But you've got to learn to ask for help in this
That as
world.
well, yeah.
Yeah,
that as well.
Yeah.
Because if you don't ask for help, you don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
And this is quite an important point in a number of ways. A lot of people just don't ask for help.
You really, you know, we could have been going to FOSS for years.
I think, you know, it's like this, you know, you keep getting this advert on TV at the moment about getting youngsters to talk, because so many youngsters are suffering with, you know, mental health problems and so on, and trying to get them to talk. And it's the same for everybody, isn't it? You know, it doesn't matter who you are, man, woman, adult, you know, child, doesn't matter. You know, if you've got problems, then you need to talk about it to someone, you know, and that can be anyone that you trust. But, you know, I think that it's just taken me a long time to realize that, you know. So it's great, but we, you know, I just try and concentrate more on what's going on at the moment rather than on the illness, you know, because I find that way I can get through it, you know. So yeah, it's good. But
I was challenged by the counsellor I was seeing to start going to things on my own, because when you're half of a couple, it's very easy to slip into this. Oh, Martin's my protector. Martin will always look out for me, because Martin knows that I've got some triggers that I struggle with.
Do you think a bit of social anxiety, maybe?
Yeah, but I've got some real triggers about peak-bound alcohol and things like that.
Right, because of your previous marriage.
So he knows that I won't go out anywhere if there's anybody that's being drunk, because I can't cope. But I actually managed last month to come to a paint and chill on my own. And I was really, really chuffed with that, because I managed it. I did it. I achieved. I sat next to one of the guys I really know quite well. But it gave me enough, him being there gave me enough confidence. Just to, you know, to come.
Which is an interesting point, actually, because I suppose when you are always together, it's easy to just stick together. And actually, you also need to do your own things.
Yeah, but I think some people that are on their own, if they heard about FOS, to be honest, they might be really scared of coming because they are going to be on their own, but they shouldn't be, because all the volunteers are lovely and all the people are really lovely. But it's just everything's like a bit of banter.
To lighten up the mood.
Yeah, it's just good fun. Yeah, it's good fun.
And you forget all the rubbish, and you forget having to get up with Martin and have a paramedic come at 3 o'clock in the morning and haul him off to hospital, because it's not just Martin just hasn't got Parkinson's. He's got a lot of other medical problems going on. And he can go from being very well one day to the next day being in crisis and me calling an ambulance. And sometimes that's really stressful. But at those points, Martin doesn't know what's going on. And he'll tell me, well, how did I get to hospital? He'll have no memory, won't you? He'll have no memory of going into hospital. He'll have no memory of the first 24 hours in hospital. Nothing. Which is scary too for me to look for help.
So if someone was listening to this and going through a similar situation, what advice would you give them?
To seek help, to go and talk to someone, because it's so important, I think, to be able to, as you say, to be able to go and talk to people. That in itself is a big relief, because when you've done it and you've shared the problems you've got, all of a sudden you feel like a sort of mental release, if you like. It's like, I feel better because I've shared that with somebody.
Yeah. So we're getting towards the end of our time together. So can I have, before we go, a pearl of wisdom, please?
Pearl of wisdom?
Yeah.
Reach out for help.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Reach out. Ask for help.
Reach out to people and just as you say, live for the moment. Do things that you really want to do, and maybe it might be things that you haven't done before, but
give it a go.
Do it. Give it a go. Because it's so important, I think, to make good memories, so that when I do get to the point where I can't remember a lot more and I can't do.
Well, that's all right, because I've got an LPA and I can bump him off.
At least I can, at least I can see, through pictures and photos and things of what we've done, and it's like, so I can still enjoy that and think, that was great fun,
Yeah, and I'd say you live in the moment as well from everything you've said.
Yeah.
Well, it's good too, because then I don't know. We've had so much help recently. I feel so blessed because we've just had so much help and love and support. It helps. It helps immensely.
Yeah.
But some things, the minor issues, can become major issues. It's not the same for everybody. Everybody's got their own issues and their own breaking point.
Oh, yeah, no, completely. And I think, even in other aspects of life, forgetting, when you've got a massive struggle in front of you, I know that I'm not always very good at asking for help. I think sometimes though it's because, as you said at the beginning, or as you said, Martin, at the beginning, you would not have known to ask for help, sort of thing. But I think sometimes it's habit, because you don't think, you think, oh, it's just me, it's just a minor issue, isn't it? And that's where you don't think of asking. And for someone, something small is for someone else something big.
Yeah.
I guess my problem was my ex is a total fool, and he's still walking around living and breathing, hasn't got anything wrong with him. And I think part of my anger was, well, it's not fair.
Yeah, why not him, sort of thing?
If anybody should be ill, it should be him and not Martin. He deserves it. Martin has done nothing to deserve what he's got.
Unfortunately, it's often the way, isn't it?
But it's hard to accept sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. Acceptance is major, isn't it?
I'm getting there. I'm working on it. A little bit. Just a little bit at a time.
Well, baby steps, isn't it? You were not born and run a marathon the next day. You've had to learn all the little things in between.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's all we've got time for today. So thank you again. If you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review, but more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.